Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome pastor of 180 Church, Lorenzo Sewell.
Do I have some patriots in here that are ready to pray? Come on, do I have some praying people that are ready to pray? How many still believe that we are one nation under God? Come on now, if you believe that, put your hands together. Would you do me a favor? Would you lift your hands to receive all the blessings that the Lord has for this country? Father, in the name of Jesus, we cry out to you today. Because you said in your word, if your people that are called by your name, if we humble ourselves, if we pray, you said if we seek your face and turn from our wicked ways, you said you would hear from heaven, forgive our sin, and you would heal our land. Father, we come to you today in the name of Jesus, and we're asking you for healing in this land. We pray that healing will happen both here in our borders and right now all over Israel. We pray for healing in the land. We pray for healing in the White House, healing right here in our community. And we believe that you are the King of glory. We believe you are strong and mighty. We believe you are mighty in battle, that there is none like you. You are the King of kings. You are the Lord of lords. You have the name that's above every name. So we cry out, Jesus, would you make America great again? If you believe it, put your hands together and give your great God great glory.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vietnam War veteran David Kuttner.
Please rise. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Carluccio.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave.
Please welcome the CEO and COO of Visioneering, Brad Hallett and Kim Van Cleef.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. I'm Brad Hallett, the CEO of Visioneering, and I have the honor of representing the ownership team alongside my wife and COO, Kim Van Cleef. On behalf of the entire Visioneering team, I want to extend a warm welcome to you all of our attendees, esteemed guests, and especially Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance.
For over 70 years, Visioneering has proudly operated as a Detroit-based manufacturer. With our original roots in automotive, we made the decision 25 years ago to direct our attention towards aerospace, space, and defense. We proudly participate on every active aerospace program today. Over that time, we've continued to innovate and evolve. We remain a leader in these dynamic fields. But the true strength of our company lies within our people. Our employees are the heart and soul of Visioneering, leading the way in aerospace manufacturing and driving the innovations that keep us at the forefront of this industry. We're also incredibly proud to be a company that values service to our country. Many of our employees are veterans, and we are honored to give them the opportunity to continue serving in a new way, contributing to the critical industries that support our nation's defense and aerospace sectors. Their skills, dedication, and commitment to our country are integral to everything that we do here. So much of what we produce within these four walls contributes to the safety and the protection of our military and our country. In addition, we take great pride in the fact that what we produce is made right here in the US of A. We remain truly dedicated to supporting American jobs and ensuring that our products carry the mark of American craftsmanship and innovation. This belief is further evidenced by our focus and commitment in supporting a Michigan supply base. It's a pledge to not only the top quality, but to strengthening our nation's economic future. Today, you are sitting in a portion of our most recent expansion, 145,000 square feet of new space that represents not only our growth, but also the broader expansion of aerospace manufacturing in Michigan. This new facility is a testament to the potential we see for continued success in this industry, and we are excited about all the opportunities it will bring, not only for Visioneering, but for the local economy and the state of Michigan as a whole. This growth also means more employment opportunities across various roles, from advanced manufacturing and engineering to leadership and support. As we look to the future, we are committed to continuing to grow alongside this industry and to remain a vital part of Michigan's economy. We're grateful for the support of leaders like Senator Vance, who understand the critical role manufacturing plays in strengthening our nation's economy and ensuring its future success. I'd like to thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to a great event. Senator Vance, it's a privilege to have you here with us.
Please welcome Dale Benecki.
Hey. My name is Dale Benecki. I am here to throw my total support behind Donald Trump for president and J.D. Vance for vice president of my United States. I am a husband, a father of 3, a grandfather of 4. I made my living as a truck driver for 47 years. The last 31 years as a Teamster from Local 299 in Detroit. Hey! My specialty was transporting cement, steel, lumber, and farm commodities. I own my own truck, which made me the ultimate small businessman here in the great state of Michigan. Thank you. Because I have seen how hard people work with long hours in dirty conditions and dangerous places, I want to represent the people, the hardworking people. I am uniquely qualified to represent these people in the state legislature. I have traveled to a lot of dangerous cities: Gary, Indiana, Cleveland, Ohio, Baltimore, Maryland, and yes, Detroit, Michigan. I was afraid of being robbed, so I kept my windows rolled up, my doors locked. But know where I got robbed? On Friday when I got my paycheck. Taxes. Yep. Kamala Harris says she'll cut taxes. Do any of us believe that? No. She endorsed the new Green Deal, which raised all the stuff that I need to truck with: fuel, gasoline, parts. Everything involved with the trucking industry is taken away and raised because of the new Green Deal. America moves by trucks. We can't eliminate our truckers. With Harris Waltz, American consumers are stuck with high gasoline costs, high food costs, and high heating costs. Ronald Reagan, does anybody remember him? Yeah. He was famous for the trickle-down economy plan. The Biden-Harris plan has been a beat-down economy plan. Beat us down with high inflation, beat us down with high illegal immigration, beat us down with high interest rates, beat us down with high regulations, beat us down with high energy costs. My union leadership didn't endorse a candidate this year, but 60% of the Teamsters membership supports Donald Trump. That's an endorsement in my book. What do you think? Yeah. Vote for Donald Trump for president. Vote for J.D. Vance for vice president. And vote for me for the state legislature, House 31, and take a load off your mind. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Isaiah Goddard.
Good afternoon. My name is Isaiah Goddard, and I'm a third-generation UAW worker. And let me tell you, I am so proud to be able to do what I do here in America. I'm proud. But the truth Right now, America is struggling. And it's happening right before our very eyes. With the failed Biden and Harris administration, Americans are unfortunately being forgotten. And I'm sorry to say that if Kamala is elected president, that this will continue. Jobs will be lost, and they're going to be given away to other countries, when those jobs should be here in America. Am I right? Am I right? And here in Michigan, as Michiganders, we know the value of products made in America, right? Michigan built the auto industry. We built it with American companies, American products, and American workers. Whether it's Michigan or supporting local small businesses, Michiganders value American goods, and President Trump knows that. Under a Trump-Vance administration, the forgotten men and women of this country are not going to be so forgotten anymore. Not anymore. I will tell you that for generations, Democrats have relied on people like me in the UAW to just give them my vote. Here you go. Right? But I take a look around, and like you, I can't seem to find one thing that I have in common with the Democratic Party, right? But one thing that I did learn, being a part of a union, is that when someone has your back, you have theirs. And I know that President Trump and Senator Vance will have our backs. I know. Right? So, we need to have theirs. I know that, like me, there are other UAW workers that support President Trump. They're here today. Look at them. You just heard somebody out there. There are UAW workers here in America that support President Trump and want to see him elected. The media won't tell you that, but it's true. It's true. So, folks, we need to understand that this is not just another 4-year election. This election is about fighting for the very heart and soul of the American worker. So, I want to challenge you today, and that includes me. I want you to pull out your phone, and I want you to write out 10 of your family members and friends' names and set up a plan and help them get out and vote and support President Trump and Senator Vance on November 5th on Election Day. I want to challenge you to do that. Right? Now, one thing you can do is you can go and you can vote early too. Get out and vote early, right? Because one thing that we can't count on is the weather on Election Day. But we can count on each and every single one of us to vote early and vote for President Trump and Senator Vance. Right? With that being said, this election is not just another 4-year election, okay? This is about fighting for the very heart and soul of American workers, like I said. So we need to send a strong message to Washington that enough is enough. Look at those signs back there. Reclaim America. Enough is enough. We must protect American jobs and American workers. So let's hire American, let's buy American, and together, let's make America great again. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, Pete Hoekstra.
Hey, thank you. I have always the greatest opportunity of a lot of the speakers, which is to say thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for all the work that many of you have done for Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, other people on the Republican ticket, but most importantly, to thank you for what you are going to do over the next 34 days and deliver a win for Donald Trump. I love Isaiah because he's absolutely right. This is an election about the future of America's economy, the future of America's workers. It was pointed out beautifully last night. J.D. Vance said, do you want to go back to the prosperity that we had under Donald Trump? Low inflation, rising wages, a secure border, peace on the international scene? Or do you want to continue what we've seen for the last 3.5 years? 19%. Think about it. 19%, 20% inflation, eroding workers' wages, a border that's not secure. And isn't it ironic that on that debate, the day of the debate, the longshoremen go on strike. Why? Because like many workers, they've recognized their wages have eroded. We have the open border. And then we see 181, think about it, 181 ballistic missiles targeted at America's strongest ally, the state of Israel. Some would have called that, at one time, they would have called that war. At the same time, there was a terrorist attack in Israel. I think 8 Israelis lost their lives. There's chaos in the world. There's chaos in our economy. It is time for a change, and we know where we need to go. We need to go back to the policies of Donald Trump, make America great again, and we will. We will restore this economy. We will save American jobs, and most importantly, for those of us who call Michigan home, we are committed to saving our auto industry. We are not going to allow our manufacturing base to move to Mexico, to move to China. Remember, we're subsidizing the construction of Chinese battery plants. Each and every one of you is paying roughly to $300 to $400 to subsidize the manufacturing of Chinese batteries here in the state of Michigan. That is your money. I bet most of you would like that money in your back pocket and not in the pocket of the Chinese Communist Party. America needs reform, we need accountability, and we need change. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Mike Rogers, John James, and the rest of the Republican ticket will deliver the type of change that we need and that you demand. It's time to hold this administration accountable for 3.5 years of failed, I won't even call it leadership, 3.5 years of failure in occupying the White House. The White House needs a new resident, and they need it today. Thank you, and again, thank you for all you're going to do. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome United States Congressman John James.
That's what I'm doing today. We got a beautiful day we have here, but you know, this is a great day to start saving America. The countdown is on, and it's up to us. You know, one of the only things I agree with a Democrat on is we deserve the politicians we have. That was Barack Obama. Yeah. If you're ready to win this election, it is up to us. It's up to us alone. You can't be a patriot from your couch. You be a patriot when you fight. You're a patriot when you stand up. You're a patriot when you tell the truth. And you're a patriot when you get other people to the polls. 1.7 million Michiganders, conservative Michiganders, couldn't be bothered to vote. You know, I'm a big Lions fan. And the Tigers are doing great too. What if somebody told you that the Lions were going to let the Packers run up the score until the fourth quarter and then try to win the game? Well, that's exactly what we sound like when we say that we're only going to vote on Election Day. They're changing the rules, and we need to make sure that we change along with it. So go to 10xvote.com and learn more about how you can get more people out to the polls, because this election is up to us. Our vote is an act of self-defense for our nation and for the future of this country. You know, so much is going wrong under Kamala Harris, you almost can't count them. We've seen our borders wide open under the Harris administration of the White House. Tens of thousands of convicted murderers in our borders and in our towns and cities. Fentanyl flowing across the border, poisoning our children and our loved ones. We see the equivalent of one commercial aircraft falling out of the sky due to fentanyl deaths each and every single year. The cost of living is killing American people, and the spirits and belief in the American dream. Inflation is ravaging not just our paychecks, but our savings accounts, when too many people are going into debt to pay for their gas, groceries, and medical bills. We're also seeing violent crime go up. And Kamala Harris said that if somebody came into her house, they'd get shot. Well, guess what? It's because she has 24/7 security. Do you? See, these elite liberals from the coast don't know what it's like in the real world right here in Michigan. They don't know that their harmful regulations would send our jobs to Mexico and China, which is why I'm pushing back in Washington against the harmful regulations that would take your job away. Right now in Warren, right across the street here, right in my district, 2,450 people are being laid off this month. Laid off. And the overflow production from Sterling Heights isn't going 15 minutes away to Warren. It's going to Mexico, Saltillo, Mexico. That's what happens when you have comply or die mandates, and directed all the way from Obama that said these jobs aren't coming back. You have Carl Marlinga, who said the automotive industry is a dying industry. I do not accept that, which is why I'm fighting each and every single day for all of your jobs here. That is why I'm here, to make sure that your voice is heard and you are not discarded. There are people who are struggling to make it to the next 3 weeks because of the last 3.5 years. Could you imagine another 4 years under a Harris-Walz administration? She is the threat to democracy. This bloodless coup. How do you take someone who's never won a primary, someone who they were talking about replacing on the ballot in the first place, and then without a single vote, you just disenfranchised 14 million people who voted for Joe Biden, and a handful of elite people replaced her on the ballot and said, this is democracy. Well, I say that's bullcrap. But you know what? You know what? Good thing that we have a fighter in Donald J. Trump. Good thing we have a fighter in J.D. Vance, and they're backed up by fighters right here today. I love my country. I went to war for my country. I have 3 little boys, and I'm terrified for them. I'm channeling my fear. I'm channeling my uncertainty to fighting for you. I'm fighting for this country because under Kamala Harris, we would lose our nation. We would lose our futures, and we are the only ones who can stand up for it. Every single generation of this country in our past 250 years has been called on for such a time as this to sacrifice. We are here because someone sacrificed for us, and we need to get off our tails over the next 34 days to sacrifice for the next generation. It is up to us. Our time is now, and we must not shrink from saving our nation. There's also another gentleman. I'm walking proof of the American dream. I understand there are many auto workers here today who've been pressured by their union leadership. I applaud your courage. I applaud you standing up. I applaud you. You know what? Just because the crowd is going somewhere doesn't make it right. I was on a call a couple years ago, and somebody asked me, how can you tell me that the Republican Party is the party of black people? And I said the Republican Party should be the party of black people, and it shouldn't be. You know why? Because when 95% of us vote with one party, you guarantee that neither party has to work for your vote. Both parties have failed all of the American people. I'm in the Republican Party because it aligns most closely with my economic and moral values. But see, here's the thing. I'm not supposed to be up here. I'm not supposed to be up here, and you're not supposed to be here either. But in this country, we get to self-determine. We get to make our own decisions, and we get to demand better from both parties. We get to make our own decisions, and right now, you're here standing up for the party who's going to take care of your jobs, the party who's going to take care of your family, the party who's going to take more money in your pocket, the party who's going to secure your border, the party who's going to make sure that our enemies fear us and our allies respect us again. And under Donald J. Trump, we are not going to be dictated to because of our job. We're not going to be dictated to because of our race. We're not going to be dictated to because of our gender. We're not going to be dictated to by anything because we are made in God's image and we have the right to choose for ourselves. And I choose America. I choose freedom. And I choose you. God bless you. God bless Michigan. God bless America.
Me close my eyes.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place.
Fight. Kamala Harris, you ought to have respect enough for your own people to enforce their border laws and listen to them. Listen to them when they complain about it. Don't pretend they're bad people. We're not bad people for loving this country. You're a bad person for doing this to the country in the first place.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Senator J.D. Vance.
How we doing? Hello, Michigan. Well, it is great to be in the great state of Michigan once again. It is great to be at an incredible manufacturing firm, Visioneering, and it is great to be in the state that I think is going to be pivotal to giving us 270 electoral votes and making Donald Trump the next president of the United States. Now, it's hard to believe, but we've only got 33 days until the election. Now, that's a good news, bad news situation because that means we've got a very limited amount of time to make our case to the American people that Donald Trump ought to be reelected president. But the good news is that means only 33 more days for Kamala Harris to gaslight and lie to the American people, and that's a pretty good thing. Now, we of course had a debate last night, a vice presidential debate. I thought it went pretty well. Now, it's funny because, we did this debate and then I talked to the president afterwards and we talked a little bit about, what actually happened and, some of the points that I made, some of the points that Governor Walz made. And, he made this observation. He said that Tim Walz said that he was friends with school shooters twice. And that's something I actually didn't notice that Tim Walz had said that on the debate stage. And I said, did he really say that, sir? And he said, I'm telling you, man, go and watch the clips. He said he was friends with school shooters twice. And I said that was probably only the third or fourth dumbest comment Tim Walz made that night then. Because look, I got to be honest, I feel a little bad for Governor Walz. And the reason I feel bad for him is because he has to defend the indefensible. And that is the record of Kamala Harris. And think about this. For the past 8 weeks, Kamala Harris, who never won a Democrat primary vote, has gone around the country saying that she is on day one going to tackle the affordability crisis that's making it hard for you to afford groceries, housing, and everything else. She says on day one, we're going to make energy prices lower for American consumers. And on day one, she says, we're going to tackle the instability and conflict all over the world. Well, Kamala Harris, day one was 1,400 days ago. What the hell have you been doing that whole time? Why don't you get to work instead of just talking about what you're going to do? Why don't you actually do it? Here's the thing. I'm running to be your next vice president of the United States, and I'm incredibly honored to stand here and ask you for your vote and ask you for your hard work. But if we win, and I believe that we are going to win in 33 days, my friends, I feel very confident about it. But when we win, the American people will have given me an awesome responsibility to represent them on the world stage, to advocate for Donald Trump's policies, to work with Congress to get things done for the American people. I get sick of having a vice president of the United States for 3.5 years pretend that she bears no responsibility for all of the policies that have made this country weaker, less prosperous, and less secure. And part of our responsibility, part of our job, my friends, over the next 33 days is to remind Michiganders and everybody else that, yes, Kamala Harris is at fault
for the Inflation Explosion Act. Yes, Kamala Harris is at fault for the explosion in federal spending that drove inflation through the roof. Yes, Kamala Harris is responsible, as the border czar, for the wide open border. Kamala Harris has been in power. She caused the problems. We're not going to entrust her to solve the very problems that she created. We're going to entrust Donald Trump with the presidency of the United States. Now let's talk a little bit about manufacturing, because I know we got a lot of employees and a lot of family members who work with Visioneering, a great American aerospace company. We believe, Donald Trump and I believe, that one of the biggest mistakes our leaders made is that they decided over 40 years that we didn't need to make our own stuff anymore. And this company stands as a proud and stark contrast to that, because right here in Visioneering, you've got 350 American workers that are making great American products. We're proud of you. We're going to fight for you, and we're going to build on that great track record. You know, my papaw was a union steel worker for almost 40 years. And the steel mill that employed my papaw had almost 10,000 jobs at one point. Now it's got about 2,000 jobs. And the steel mill, we're one of the lucky ones, because a lot of those great American steel producers, they didn't just shed 8,000 jobs, they went out of business altogether. And why did they do it? They did it because other countries used literal slave labor to undercut the wages of American workers and destroy our industries. And Donald Trump, if we stand for anything, we stand for an end to that practice. We're going to build more in America. We're going to manufacture more in America. We're going to make more in America, and we're going to do it with American workers and build American prosperity in the process. That is our promise. That is Donald Trump's solemn promise. Now, here's the thing, of course, Visioneering is a great aerospace company. But we got a lot of other proud industries in the state of Michigan, and a lot of proud industries that are not thriving thanks to Kamala Harris's policies. Now, where did we go in this country where you've got Kamala Harris who wants to tax working people so that rich people, she wants to subsidize rich people to buy electric vehicles made in China? Is that a good idea? Absolutely. It's not a good idea. Now, here's the thing. My papaw, like I said, was a union steel worker, and he was a little gruff from time to time. I love my papaw. But you know what? He had a word for the kind of policies that Kamala Harris is pursuing, where we're going to tax American workers and then send their jobs overseas. One word, and that was bullshit. Doesn't make an ounce of sense. And it's not just American workers and Michigan workers in particular. I mean, look, we've got the proudest auto industry in the entire world built right here in the state of Michigan. As a Buckeye, it's hard for me to admit that, my friends. It is hard for me to admit how good Michigan workers are at making automobiles. But why are we trying to tell Americans that they've got to drive electric vehicles made in China? Why don't we send this message? This is America. Drive whatever the hell you want to, because we believe in freedom and we believe in choice in the United States of America. And look, if we pursue those policies that say, yeah, if you want to drive an electric vehicle, by all means, drive an electric vehicle. But if you want to drive a Michigan-built, gas-powered car, that is your right, and we're going to support your choice to do whatever you want to do, and we're going to build prosperity for Michigan workers in the process. But thanks to Kamala Harris's policies, this is a person who loves to pretend that she stands for American workers. Well, nobody stood as strongly and as proudly for American workers than Donald J. Trump. He did it for 4 years, and he's going to do it again. So just in the last few years under Kamala Harris's leadership, I'm going to read this to make sure I get my facts right. Stellantis announced that it was going to lay off 2,500 Michigan auto workers who make the Ram 1500 Classic. What a disgrace that is. A great American automobile, and those jobs are going to get destroyed and either replaced with factory jobs in Mexico or completely eliminated altogether, because Kamala Harris doesn't want to empower Americans to buy Michigan-made automobiles. Last year, GM let go 1,300 Michigan workers at 2 separate facilities. And Ford is currently rolling back a lot of its EV production because a lot of Americans don't want to buy EVs. They want to buy the cars that they want to buy. Now, why are we doing this to our own workers? Why are we doing this to our own industry? Why are we doing this to our own country? Because Kamala Harris has decided that she's going to pursue policies that make her donors, her green scam donors, rich, and she's going to impoverish a generation of Michigan auto workers. I say, hell no. Let's empower and enrich Michigan auto workers with the leadership of Donald Trump. Now, look, this is not just about, 2,500 jobs, my friends. That's not just a number. Think about that. That is 2,500 American families that have a family supporting wage, and that disappears thanks to Kamala Harris's policies. That's 2,500 moms and dads. They're going to have financial stress they didn't have before because of Kamala Harris's policies. That's 2,500 families. They're going to be worried about putting food on the table or paying heating bills because we all know it gets pretty cold up here in the middle of a Michigan winter. That is 2,500 families made to suffer not because of an act of God, not because of something that happened accidentally, but because our own leadership failed to do its job. And if this election is about anything, it is about getting back to some common sense economic principles that put American citizens, American workers, and American consumers first, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Every single day, that's why we exist, is to serve you, not to destroy your jobs like Kamala Harris. Now, of course, remember, the promise that was made, and Tim Walz made this argument last night. And one of these things that really, really annoyed the hell out of me is he said, well, look, here's this economist who says that Donald Trump's plans are going to lead to higher inflation. Well, first of all, Tim, Donald Trump was already president for 4 years. We got rising take-home pay and lower inflation, so I don't think those economists know what the hell they're talking about. But even if you ignore the evidence of what Donald Trump did in office, look, what these economists are saying is that if we ship our entire industrial base off to countries like China, it's going to make American workers richer somehow. It's going to make our goods cheaper somehow. Well, we've been living through the inflation of the last 3.5 years, and we know that when we make our country less self-reliant, when we pursue the policies that Kamala Harris says that we ought to pursue, it makes Americans poorer. It drives up the cost of food and of housing. It makes our country less prosperous, and it makes our nation more dependent on people who don't like us to make the critical stuff that we need. We got to get rid of that. Stop listening to the economists and start listening to common sense in this country. But think about this. They said, here's the deal. Tim Walz has the audacity, and Kamala Harris has the audacity to say that, well, if Donald Trump's policies are enacted, that's going to lead to higher prices for American consumers. Tim, we already ran this experiment once. Donald Trump's economic policies worked for American families. They worked for American consumers. But here's the thing. Think about this. If a Chinese company wants to hire a literal slave laborer making $4 a day, and they want to import the goods made by that slave laborer, then it's going to make Americans poor. Because, of course, we shouldn't expect American middle-class workers to work for a slave wage in China. We ought to expect our middle-class workers to be able to support a family on those wages, and that's what we're going to fight for every single day. So here's what you got to do. To prevent those companies and those countries from undercutting the wages of American workers, you got to be willing to impose tariffs. Fight back against the theft of the American middle class. Penalize those companies that are shipping jobs overseas and give a tax cut to American workers. That's how you build prosperity for this country, and that's what we're going to fight for. And let's just recap what Kamala Harris's policies have actually done. The average Michigan family is spending over $1,000 per month to pay for what they could have bought 3.5 years ago. That's $12,000 a year, a hidden tax of $12,000 a year just to be able to buy what you could have bought 3.5 years ago. That's not pro-working people. Kamala Harris has presided over policies that have seen the cost of housing go up by over 50%. That is not pro-working families. She's seen policies that have seen the cost of eggs go up by more than double. Gallon of milk is now about $4 in the state of Michigan. Groceries are up 25%. Kamala Harris's leadership has been tried and it has been found wanting, and Americans, we want to get back to common sense. We want to be able to afford a nice living, a nice house for our families, and to do that, we have got to elect the common sense leadership of Donald J. Trump, and that's exactly what everybody in this room is going to do. Now I want to talk about just something else that, you know, credit card delinquencies are about 9% right now. That means a lot of American families are sacrificing. They're not paying their credit card debts so they can afford groceries or they can afford the mortgage. What a disgrace and what a sad commentary it is on Kamala Harris's economic policies that you've got hardworking people who are doing everything that they can to provide for their families, and they're falling further behind. Not because they're not doing their job, but because Kamala Harris isn't doing hers. So and ma'am, you're right. Kamala Harris doesn't care about this because she doesn't understand, because she doesn't talk to anybody. She's afraid of interviews. So she doesn't talk to people, and she doesn't realize that her economic policies are making it harder on American families. And you all know my story. I talked about it a little bit last night. But I was raised by a grandmother who sometimes would refuse to turn on the heating at night when times got especially tough. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes forego paying for her own medicines so that she could put food on the table in our family. And I remember feeling, even though money was tight, that thanks to my grandmother, I never really lacked for anything. But American grandparents and American parents shouldn't have to make those sacrifices to begin with. If you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to afford a good life for your family. And that's what Donald Trump and I are going to fight for every single day for the next 4 years. And I want to talk about one more issue. We're going to, of course, take a few questions from the reporters, but I want to talk about one more issue. Because the American media, and especially Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they don't want to talk about how this illegal immigration crisis is a theft of the American dream from American citizens. And we see this in small communities. We see this in big cities all over our country. When you let in 25 million people, you know what that does? That stresses municipal budgets. So a lot of cities and towns can't afford to provide for their own citizens because they're focused on providing for people who shouldn't be here. You know, hospital wait times, because illegal aliens use hospital emergency rooms primarily. So hospital wait times have gone up in the state of Michigan. They're close to 3 hours for American citizens who want to go into the hospital and see a doctor. We've got so many problems. Housing. You know, when you let in 25 million illegal aliens and they compete with Americans for scarce homes, that drives up the cost of housing, and that is a major cost of the housing crisis. I had the debate moderator attempt to fact check me last night. She said, what's your evidence that illegal immigration promotes and increases housing cost increase? And I said, well, first of all, common sense. When you let in millions of people who shouldn't be here, you got to house them somewhere, and those are houses that ought by right go to American citizens. Donald Trump and I are going to fight for that every single day. American homes for American people. But there's also, to talk about Tim Walz's economist that he loves to cite, our own Federal Reserve has commissioned a study that shows that when you let in a lot of illegal aliens, it jacks up the price of housing. So how about this simple principle? Kamala Harris wants to give amnesty to millions of illegal aliens. She wants to bankrupt Medicare by giving Medicare to illegal aliens. Do we want that? She wants to bankrupt Social Security by giving Social Security to illegal aliens. Do we want that? Here's the Donald Trump plan, and here's the Donald Trump message to illegal aliens in this country. In 6 months, pack your bags because you're going home. That's what we're going to do. And you know, you heard this a little bit last night. You hear a lot of talk about compassion when the issue of illegal immigration comes up. Well, let's talk about compassion. Because I'm the father of 3 beautiful young kids. I don't think that it's compassionate to empower the Mexican drug cartels to engage in sex trafficking along our southern border. That's not compassionate. I don't believe that it's compassionate to flood American cities and towns with fentanyl that is killing our citizens by the tens of thousands. I don't believe that it is compassionate to allow our southern border to become a drug trafficking and business zone for some of the most evil and terrible people in the world. You know what's compassionate? Closing that border down and putting the interests of American citizens first, and that is what we're going to do. You know, because these guys, they love to talk about threats to democracy. Well, as Donald Trump will often remind you, he took a bullet for democracy. So I don't think that any person can accuse the guy of doing anything other than fighting every single day to make this country more prosperous and to make the world more peaceful. But when the media talks about threats to democracy, you know what a threat to democracy is? When you have Kamala Harris running for president despite not earning a single vote from Democratic primary voters. That's a threat to democracy. You know what else is a threat to democracy? When big tech firms and major American companies and big government censors American citizens and deprives them of their voice in the town square. That's a way bigger threat to democracy than anything else going on, and we're going to stop it right away. Because look, I genuinely think this is one very big difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Look, I disagree, of course, with Kamala Harris. I disagree with Governor Walz. I disagree with a lot of the folks who support him, but I would die fighting to defend their right to speak their mind, even if I disagree with it. And I think every single person in this room believes that because we believe in free speech. And as a person who was raised by a couple of working class blue collar Democrats, I want to say to every Democrat who's watching at home, every Democrat who's in this room, you are more than welcome in Donald Trump's Republican Party. We're the party of common sense. We got a big tent, and you're welcome in our movement. Because whether you agree or disagree with us about tax policy or regulatory policy, I think a lot of Americans are saying they're sick of the censorship. They're sick of being told what to think and what to say. They're sick of being told that they're not allowed to be friends with people they disagree with politically, and they're tired of being told by their government to shut up. Because we believe in the First Amendment in this country. You have every right to petition your government and tell them they're screwing up, and that's exactly what Kamala Harris is doing. And that's why Bobby Kennedy endorsed Donald Trump. That's why Tulsi Gabbard endorsed Donald Trump, because we believe in persuading our fellow Americans and not silencing them. And that is a big difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. You hear these people talk, and Governor Walz mentioned this yesterday. He talked about you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. And you know what that line is from a disgraced Supreme Court opinion. We believe that the solution to bad ideas is to debate them and persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris believes the solution to things she disagrees with is to silence you and to shut you up. It's disgraceful, it's anti-American, and we will not stand for it and Donald Trump's political movement. So I want to close before I take some questions from the media, and I just want to remind you that we got to look through Kamala Harris's lies. She talks about all these great plans that she has. And look, some of them she straight up copied from Donald Trump. So some of them I'm like, Kamala Harris, that doesn't sound that bad. You went on DonaldJTrump.com and copied and pasted it. She's going to put on a red MAGA hat next thing you know. But look, if you've got all these great ideas, Kamala Harris, I've got a message. Why don't you try them right now? Because you're the sitting vice president and you haven't done a damn thing for American workers or the American people. The sitting vice president cannot say on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and your policies caused the affordability crisis. She can't say on day one, we're going to make the borders more secure, because she's been the border czar for years, telling Americans that the border is secure. She ought to do something about it now instead of lying and gaslighting the American people. She talks about restoring American leadership to the world and bringing back peace and stability to the world that has turned to chaos. And when she says that, I say, Kamala, I've got a really good idea for how we can bring peace and stability back to the world. Vote for Donald J. Trump and bring him back to the Oval Office. So to all of you who are here, and all of you that are watching or will see some of the clips of this later on, I just want to tell you that we have the greatest country in the history of the world. We've got flying in here, and trust me, as a Buckeye, it is hard to admit it, you have got one of the most beautiful states in the entire United States of America, especially this time of year. I love being in Michigan. We've got the best natural resources, the best people, the best workers, the best history anywhere in the world. And I know a lot of people feel like the American dream is out of reach. I know a lot of people feel like it's gotten way too expensive to afford food and energy. It's gotten way too expensive to pay the rent. And I just want to tell you, please do not give up on this country. Because as broken as the leadership of this nation is, it's going to change in 33 days, but only if we get out there and work for it. So to every American out there, we're going to bring back the American dream. We're going to bring back affordable groceries. We're going to make housing and rent possible to afford for normal American citizens. We are going to cut the border crap out and close down that border. We're going to bring the American dream back, but only if Donald J. Trump is back in the White House. We got 33 days. Let's make it happen. Let's fight for it. Let's work for it. And we're going to make him the next president. So let's take a few questions from the reporters, and I always like to start with the local reporters first, and then we'll do to the national folks if we got time afterwards.
Senator Vance, first of all, congratulations on last night's debate.
Thank you.
I did get a chance to speak to some voters here before you stepped on stage. I spoke to Jeffrey and Bert, and they said that they loved how the debate was civil and policy focused. But then I also got some opportunity to speak to voters outside of the event, and I got a question from Robert from Pontiac, and it's a two-part question. I hope you can answer it.
Sure.
So the first part is, with issues where Americans are divided, if elected as the next vice president, how will you bring folks together, especially from the other party? And if there is an issue you disagree with Donald Trump, how will you make your voice heard for the people?
Well, so you said the person who asked that question is named Robert?
Correct.
So my message to Robert on the first question is, look, I think that the reason this country feels so divided is because of failed leadership and nothing else. You talk to, and look, I genuinely believe this. With a lot of folks who are going to vote against me and Donald Trump, there are a lot of people out there who are fundamentally good human beings, but the leadership of the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, is an absolute disgrace. And here's the way, again, why do we have so much division? And why do we have so much rancor in this country's political debate? It's because Kamala Harris and her allies are trying to silence the American people rather than engage with them. When you try to censor your fellow citizens, when you try to shut them up, you breed division and hatred. Donald Trump and I are going to bring this country back together by encouraging the free exchange of ideas and this idea that our leaders ought to persuade their fellow citizens, not try to shut them up, which is what Kamala Harris wants to do. Open this country up. Open up the dialogue and open up the debate, and that is how you bring American citizens back together in these divided times. But on the second question about what do you do when you disagree with Donald Trump, the answer is, first of all, Donald Trump is at the top of the Republican ticket. He will be the next president of the United States. I've got two responsibilities. The first is to support the president in enacting an agenda that I believe is going to lead to rising take-home pay and lower inflation for American citizens. That's number one. But of course, if I disagree with the president, it is my responsibility to talk to him about it and to offer honest counsel in private. And one of the things that I love about Donald Trump is that he takes advice and feedback from everybody. As much as... You know, it's funny, when the president, the only conversation that he and I ever had about whether I might become his vice presidential nominee was the Saturday before the convention. If you remember, that was the Saturday where he was shot in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I saw him that morning in Florida. We ended our conversation. He hopped in a plane and flew to Pennsylvania, where, of course, an assassin nearly took his life. And you know what the president told me? He said that he talked to everybody about who his vice presidential nominee should be. And I think that's one of the great things is he's willing to take feedback. Of course, he makes the final decision, but he's willing to take inputs from everybody. And he even said that he was talking to the Mar-a-Lago gardener about who the vice presidential nominee should be. And I said, well, sir, what the hell did the Mar-a-Lago gardener say? Because this affects my life. I'm very curious what these people you're talking to are saying about this very important decision. But I think that it's one of the great things about his leadership style is he is in charge, he is in command, but he makes decisions after getting as much information as possible, and that's how the country should be led. You know, it actually raised an important question, you know, Robert, and I know, of course, the journalist who's asking this question. Look, one of the things that people in D.C. say about Kamala Harris, and it's Democrats that say this, it's people she served with in the Senate, and it's also Republicans. And of course they say this in private, but they'll say Kamala Harris is very insecure. She doesn't like to be challenged. If you don't like to be challenged and you don't like to engage in open debate, you should be nowhere near the Oval Office of the United States of America. Next question.
Thank you. I'm Charlie Langton from Fox News, WWJ here.
Hey, Charlie.
I talked to a lot of people here. They also said you were very cordial last night in the debate, and the message got through. But compare your style to Donald Trump's style, where he was a little aggressive. Do you think that Donald Trump's message sometimes is lost because of his aggressive style?
No, Charlie, look, I think, first of all, there is a media caricature out there of Donald Trump that is so different from the man that I've come to know. And I think that, you know, when he called me last night, you know what he said? He asked me how my wife was doing. And he said, you know, you just had a hell of a debate. I'm sure that you were nervous. You had every right to be nervous, but go and have a nice meal with your wife and go and enjoy this moment. Like, that's the Donald Trump that I know. People say, now look, the other thing I love about Donald Trump, and I think it's true of all of us, we can be so devoted to and so grateful to this country and its incredible opportunities, but then also be kind of pissed off that the leadership is failing this great nation. There's no there's no tension in saying, on the one hand, we've got the greatest country in the world, and on the other hand, Kamala Harris is doing everything she can to screw it up. And I love that Donald Trump can do both of those things at the same time. He can go out there and talk to the American people and be warm and engaged. He can talk to a normal American citizen about their struggles in paying for groceries and housing under Kamala Harris's policies. And then he can go on a debate stage and tell Kamala Harris that she ought to stop screwing up and she ought to stop talking about solving the country's problems. She ought to go and actually do it. That's the kind of president we need. That's the kind of leader that we need. And I think his message gets through. Thank you. Next question.
Hey, Senator. Craig Mauger from the Detroit News newspaper here. You were talking about your opposition to EV mandates. My question is, do you think the government should have any role in incentivizing, providing financial assistance to battery plants, to electric vehicle plants. Michigan is poised to benefit from some of these investments. Will you allow those to go forward? Will you try to interfere with those? Thank you.
Well, look, I think there's certainly a role, and I believe this, I know Donald Trump believes this, in encouraging innovation, but there's a difference between promoting innovation and sending hundreds of billions of dollars to favored industries that make their products in China. These are two very, very different things. And here's the problem with a lot of these EV mandates is that this money was supposed to go to American workers, but Kamala Harris's IRS found every way possible to allow that EV subsidy to go to manufacturers in China and not in the United States of America. And here's the other problem with it. It's not just auto jobs that we're worried about here. Think about all the people who make carburetors. Think about all the people who make transmissions. There's an entire supply chain in the auto industry that China dominates when it comes to EVs and America dominates when it comes to gas-powered cars. So before we go and subsidize the EV industry, let's open up the American supply chain for that industry so that American workers and American consumers benefit. All of the minerals, all of the rare earth materials, a lot of the battery technology, a lot of the supply chain for these electric vehicles is made in China. And with the one hand, Kamala Harris wants to make it harder to build that supply chain in the United States of America. And with the other hand, she wants to send money to an industry that's built in China. It's disgraceful, and we got to stop doing it. Invest in American workers, not in Chinese workers and Chinese firms. And I know we unfortunately have to go to our next stop in the great state of Michigan. So I'll take one more question, and then I'll offer a final observation. Then we'll hit the road.
Hi, Senator Will Jones from Local 4.
Hey, Will.
I spoke with some elected officials or election officials last week about their concern about people who are trying to undermine our elections. Why didn't you answer the question last night during the debate about who won the 2020 presidential election?
Well, look, here's the simple reason. The media is obsessed with talking about the election of 4 years ago. I'm focused on the election of 33 days from now because I want to throw Kamala Harris out of office and get back to common sense economic policies. But I also think you can believe that America needs to have secure and free elections, but also talk about the fact that just a couple of weeks ago, Democrats in the U.S. Congress blocked a piece of legislation that would have ensured illegal aliens don't vote in our elections. If you believe in American democracy, if you believe in our constitutional republic, you should be trying to strengthen American election integrity and not weaken it. So we're going to talk about election integrity because I believe that every vote ought to count, but only the legally cast votes, and that's why we fight for election integrity, and that's why we care so much about it. Now this actually leads me into my next point, because I want to talk about, look, Democrats, whether they agree with what Donald Trump and I say about some of the criticisms we have, for example, I think that we make it way too easy for people to fraudulently vote in this country. Okay? I think that we should have passed the SAVE Act that would have ensured illegal aliens don't vote in our elections. Apparently Kamala Harris disagrees because she fought that legislation every step of the way. But the reason why Kamala Harris should actually sign on with our pro-election integrity efforts, things like common sense voter ID, is because it gives the American people confidence in the most important thing that we do when it comes to our government, which is voting. I want every American to have confidence. And by the way, to all of you listening out there, I believe that we are going to have the safest and most secure election in 2024 that we've had because the RNC is fighting for election integrity in a way that it frankly wasn't 4 years ago. So get out there. So I'd encourage folks, get out there and vote. And this brings me to swampthevote.com. And I want to make sure I got this right here. It's swampthevote.com. Go to swampthevote.com. Check your registration. Check your polling location. It'll give you some good information about how to vote and also how to volunteer. Because, one of the things that we're trying to do to ensure common sense election integrity is to promote more poll watchers. We've got more poll watchers in the Republican Party today than we had 4 years ago. If you're interested in helping us out and making sure that every legally cast ballot counts, then you can go to Swamp the Vote and help figure out how to get involved in those efforts. We believe in election integrity. I know all of you do, but election integrity only happens if all of us fight for it. But I got to be honest with you, I think that we're in a better shape in 2024 than we have been in a long time. We've done a lot to make our elections more secure, and what we've got to do, my friends, is get out there and vote. Never give in to the despair that your voice doesn't matter. We've got all kinds of ways to vote. You can vote early, you can vote by mail, you can vote on election day. Look, I don't love that we have election season in this country instead of election day, but it is what it is, and we've got to play by the rules that we've been given. And if we play by those rules over the next 33 days, we are going to win. We are going to send Donald Trump back to the White House, and we're going to save the American dream for all of our citizens. But let me say one final thing here, and I want to point out a couple of people that I didn't mention at the top, but first of all, you guys have got a great Republican chair in the state of Michigan, Pete Hoekstra. Pete, please wave and say hello. We've got an old friend of mine from before either of us were involved in politics, the great Congressman John James. Where's John at? I know he's around here somewhere. John's got a beautiful family, and he's been a great advocate for the state of Michigan. I hope you guys reelect him, and I believe that you will. But let me just say this final thing before we got to hit the road. I have learned over the last 8 weeks more about this country than I could have possibly hoped to learn. And I mentioned this last night, but the thing that has affected me the most is all of the people who come up to me, and some of them are struggling to put food on the table, and they have the generosity of spirit to ask me how I'm doing, or to tell me that they're praying for my wife and kids. And it makes me realize that we have got the greatest country in the world. So I don't want us to ever get so frustrated with our leadership that we forget that we've got the best people, the best jobs, the best workers, the best natural resources. The only thing that I believe is broken about this country is the failed generation of leadership of people like Kamala Harris. So you have not just an important opportunity, we all have an important responsibility to return the people's government back to the American people, to have a president who puts the interests of America's citizens first, to close the border, bring down the cost of groceries, make housing more affordable again, and to make sure that the American people have a government that serves and fights for them. 33 days, let's get to work and make it happen. God bless you all, and thanks for having me.